Welcome, travelers, to another journey into the depths of Middle-earth. Today we unveil one of the most enigmatic aspects of the One Ring, the power it held over time itself. Why did the One Ring prolong the lives of its bearers? Was it a gift or a curse? And what does it reveal about Sauron's dark mastery? Let us begin. In the year 1600 of the Second Age, Sauron forged the One Ring in the fires of Orodruin, pouring into it much of his own power and malice. Unlike the other rings of power, which enhanced their wearers in different ways, the One Ring was designed as a tool of domination. It extended life unnaturally, yet it did not grant true immortality. Those who bore it lingered on, but they did not truly live. This is best seen in the case of the 9 mortal men who accepted Sauron's rings. They became the Ringwraiths, bound forever to his will, their existence stretched until they faded into shadow. But how did this work? The answer lies in the nature of the rings themselves. Tolkien described their primary power as a means to prevent or slow decay. The elves, who crafted the 3 rings without Sauron's touch, used them to preserve beauty and resist the passage of time. Yet Sauron twisted this ability when he forged the One. It granted longevity but drained the soul. Those who wore it experienced time differently, neither aging nor growing, but slowly unraveling under its weight. Bilbo Baggins provides a striking example. Despite reaching the incredible age of 111, he appeared to have aged little since first acquiring the ring. Yet he described feeling thin, sort of stretched, like butter that has been scraped over too much bread. This was not true longevity, but a parasitic effect. The ring extended existence while leeching away vitality. Over time, those who bore it too long would begin to fade, slipping into the wraith-like half-existence of the Nazgul. Let us pause here. The implications of the One Ring's power extend beyond mere survival. They reveal Sauron's ultimate aim. In the next part, we shall explore what it truly meant to be claimed by the ring, and how this unnatural lifespan tied into the deeper themes of Middle-earth. The One Ring did not merely lengthen the lives of its bearers, it ensnared them in a slow and inevitable descent toward ruin. This was not a blessing, but a corruption of time itself. When Sauron forged the ring, he imbued it with his will to dominate, and in doing so, he ensured that its power would not grant life freely, but rather prolong existence while demanding a terrible cost. Gollum, once known as Smeagol, serves as the clearest case of the ring's long reach. In the year 2463 of the Third Age, he murdered Deagol to claim the ring, and from that moment it began to consume him. Under its influence, he lived for nearly 500 years, far beyond the natural lifespan of his kind. Yet his body twisted, his mind shattered, and his very sense of self eroded. He called the ring precious, not merely out of obsession, but because he was bound to it, unable to die, yet unable to truly live. The reason for this unnatural longevity lies in how the ring interacts with its bearer's spirit. Sauron, being a Maya, lesser Ainur, was bound to the fabric of Arda and could not naturally grant life or true immortality. Instead, the ring sustained its owner by keeping them tethered to the physical world, preventing the natural release of their Feya, or soul. For men, this was especially cruel, for death was Ilúvatar's gift to them, a release from the confines of the world. But the ring, being a device of Morgothian will, subverted this design. It did not grant eternal life. It delayed the inevitable, while making the bearer increasingly dependent upon it. This explains why Frodo, despite holding the ring for only a short time, began to feel its effects. He noted how he could sense things more acutely, how his dreams became disturbed, and how, by the time he reached Mount Doom, he felt an unnatural weariness. Had he kept it for decades, he too might have begun to fade, slipping from sight like the Nazgul, who had long since passed into the realm of shadows. Even Bilbo, who had the ring for over 60 years, displayed these signs. When he finally parted with it, he aged rapidly, as though the years had come rushing back upon him at once. This was no mere coincidence. The ring did not just slow aging. It held its bearers in a state of unnatural existence, and once removed, time reclaimed what had been stolen. Yet there is something more at work here. The process of fading is not just about physical longevity. It is a spiritual corruption, a severing of one's place in the mortal world. In the next part, we shall examine the ring wraiths and the final stage of this transformation when one becomes utterly bound to Sauron's will. To understand the full horror of the One Ring's power over time, we must look to the ultimate fate of its longest-serving victims, the ring wraiths. The Nine, once lords among men, accepted Sauron's rings in the Second Age, and in doing so, they surrendered their natural lives to an existence neither living nor dead. Unlike Gollum or Bilbo, who retained some degree of selfhood, the Nazgul had passed beyond that threshold, becoming wraiths utterly consumed by the Dark Lord's will. The term wraith itself is key to understanding their fate. It is derived from the concept of fading, a slow, agonizing transformation in which a mortal's body and spirit become unstuck from the physical world. As stated in the Silmarillion, the spirits of men are meant to depart the world upon death, but the power of the rings disrupted this natural order. The bearers of the Nine did not merely live longer. They existed in a state of perpetual suspension, unable to truly die, yet no longer belonging to the world of the living. What caused this? The answer lies in the nature of Sauron's corruption. The One Ring which ruled the Nine contained the very essence of his being. It acted as an anchor, binding its wearers to his will and to Middle-earth itself. Over centuries, the ring wraiths became invisible to mortal eyes, yet they could still perceive the world in a terrible new way, seeing with senses unnatural and heightened. Much like Frodo when he wore the ring, they were trapped between realms, unable to die because their souls had been wholly claimed. This process of fading was not unique to the Nazgul. Had Bilbo kept the ring for another century, he might have suffered the same fate. Though hobbits were more resistant to its influence, they were not immune. Gollum, too, was well on his way, living in the darkness beneath the misty mountains, speaking in hisses and whispers, his very identity slipping away. It is possible that, had he not lost the ring, he would have eventually faded, becoming a creature of shadow much like the wraiths themselves. The irony of this unnatural longevity is that it led not to power, but to enslavement. The bearers of the Nine sought dominion, yet they lost all agency. Gollum sought to possess the ring, yet it possessed him. Even Frodo, as noble as he was, could not fully resist its call. At the moment of decision, when he stood upon the brink of Mount Doom, he could not let it go. The ring's hold over its bearers was absolute, and its extension of life was nothing more than a slow, inescapable descent into servitude. But there is still one final question to answer. If the One Ring could so thoroughly dominate its bearers, what hope was there for anyone to escape its grasp? In the next segment, we shall explore the only true means of release from its power. If the One Ring's power extended life only to consume it, then the question remains, was there any escape from its grasp? Could one truly free themselves once ensnared? The answer, like so much in Middle-earth, is both simple and deeply tragic. For some, the only release from the ring's influence was death. The ring wraiths, having fully faded, were beyond saving. Their spirits were utterly bound to Sauron's will, and even with his destruction, their existence did not truly end. They merely lost the force that held them together. Likewise, Gollum's fate was sealed the moment he took the ring for himself. Had he not fallen into the fires of Mount Doom, he would have continued his miserable existence, neither willing nor able to part with it. But for others, a different fate was possible. Bilbo Baggins, despite his long years under the ring's shadow, was able to surrender it willingly, though not without great strain. When he left it behind in Rivendell, the weight upon him lifted, but the years came rushing back. He aged swiftly, a sign that time itself had been unnaturally held at bay. His journey to the Undying Lands was, perhaps, an act of mercy. Without the ring, he was finally free, but he had little time left. Frodo, too, was able to part with the ring, though not by his own will. At the moment of choice, he failed, unable to resist its absolute power. Yet fate, or Ilúvatar's design, intervened. The ring was destroyed, and with it the grip it held upon him. Even so, the wounds it left, both physical and spiritual, never truly healed. His departure to the Undying Lands was not to gain immortality, but to find rest. Middle-earth, for him, could never be home again. The destruction of the One Ring was the only true way to end its influence entirely. Without it, Sauron's power was shattered, and those who had been bound to it, willingly or not, were freed. But this freedom came at great cost. Those who bore the ring, even briefly, were changed forever. Frodo, Bilbo, Gollum, all suffered in their own ways, each paying a price for touching the power of Sauron. In the end, the One Ring's ability to prolong life was a lie. It did not grant immortality, only a slow unraveling. Those who held it for too long did not escape death. They merely postponed it at the cost of their own soul. The true gift of Ilúvatar was not endless life within Arda, but the unknown fate that lay beyond it. The ring, in all its dark power, was nothing more than Sauron's attempt to deny that truth, a futile defiance against the very order of the world. And so, the great lesson of the ring remains. To hold on to it is to lose oneself, and to let it go is to find freedom, though not without pain. The price of unnatural life is too great, and even the mightiest cannot bear its burden forever. Our journey through this dark mystery of Middle-earth ends here, but the echoes of the One Ring's power linger on. Perhaps, in some way, it still whispers in the wind, calling out for a new bearer. But that is a tale for another time.